All right, let's go ahead and we'll get started, and people can join in as the time goes on. But welcome everyone to MVP Office Hours today. Thanks for joining us. And as I'm kind of going through stuff, I guess Deepa and Marty, you don't need to raise your hands because I know that you're out there. Unless did we lose Deepa? I don't see you in the web.
I'm here.
Okay, I don't see you on the web portion, so.
I am.
Weird.
That is weird.
Anyways, okay. So just a quick rundown. Oh, there you are. Bounce back in. Okay, so just a quick rundown for everyone. I know some of you, I recognize some names, but just to give everybody an idea of MVP Office Hours and what it's all about is, this is really just an open forum for you to ask questions about things you're doing right now, things you're looking to do, whether that be administrator or developer. Just a couple ground rules as it is an open forum is all we ask is that you mute your line during the call unless you have a question or whatnot, because we leave them all open. There's a couple ways to ask questions. If there's a dead spot where we're asking people, hey, do you have a question? Feel free to definitely speak up. But you can also, while we're answering questions or whatnot, you can post in the chat. You can raise your hand within the web meeting. Any of those ways work fine. And then we'll just kind of try to answer them as we go, or at least point you in the right direction. So, just some quick introductions. Like I said, my name is Jared Kingston. I'm a consultant with Apereo, and I just help organize MVP Office Hours with Joshua Hoskins, who is unable to make it today. And then we have some awesome MVPs on the call, and there's two of them, so I'll pick them out. So Deepa, just a quick introduction of yourself.
Hi, thank you. Yes, Jared. This is Deepa Patel with Halleck Consulting. I am a Salesforce MVP and a Silicon Valley user group co-leader, and I've been doing Salesforce work for over 5 years with some very happy clients. And
awesome.
Glad to be here to help.
Awesome. Thanks, Deepa. And then Marty, if you just introduce yourself real quick.
Thanks, Jared. This is Marty Chang. I work for Slalom Consulting out of the Boston office, and very fortunate to be working on Salesforce, and I'm a developer. So if you have any questions on Force.com or related technologies, be happy to try to help today.
Yes, thankful that Marty is on so that we can get those developer questions answered. Awesome, thanks guys. All right, so with that being said, we'll go ahead and open up the floor. Like I said, if you have questions, feel free to speak up now, post in the chat, raise your hand. Either way works. So who's got a question for us? Don't be shy. No bad questions.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Is there a way to configure lead statuses so that if you have, say, 10 statuses, but you want to require a certain process to be followed once the lead hits a specific status, to force them to go, so say if you have a couple of, an MQL and an SQL before it goes to a converted lead, so that if the rep is working on the lead, they want to progress it. I don't want them skipping specific statuses, but they're allowed to go back in the status at any time, so they could put something back into a nurture status or a prospect status, for example. But if they want to go forward in the process, it requires them not to skip steps. Does that make any sense?
Wow. Yeah, no, it does make sense, and that would be a fairly complex validation rule that you would need to write, because you would be checking to make sure that the previous step is taken, but at the same time you're saying they can go back.
Right.
So that gets a really complex. The best way that I can, it is a validation rule that you have to write. What I'm going to suggest is you really write down your logic, because remember, it's going to be if then else logic. If this happens, then do this kind of logic. So write down your logic in a piece of paper and make sure you got every scenario, and then sit down and start writing the formula. And when you run into problems, post on Answers, and Steve Moe will come to your rescue.
Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely I agree with Deepa. It's definitely going to be a validation rule, and it'll probably be decently expensive, but you could and I've done something similar before, just with opportunities. And one function that you'll want to lean on is prior value. So you can look at if the prior value is this, basically only let the current value of the status be this, so that you can make sure that they're not going from, qualifying to converted, right away. So you can control it that way, and Howard posted in the chat as well. As another, you could use a case statement as well to kind of help within that. But yeah, definitely look into the prior value, because that's what I used on some similar scenario with the stages within an opportunity. So,
can I ask it another way? Would it be a better option to say, so basically my scenario is we are trying to figure out how long it takes our lead process, our average lead process, to go from an MQL open to an MQL working to an SQL open to an SQL working to a converted opportunity, or converted to an opportunity. So I have these fields running in the background that are collecting those date fields. So would it be a better option to write a workflow that says, if they go from a prospect to an SQL working, that these background fields are filled with the dates of today, so that I'm not actually making the user click on each one of those statuses and hitting save, and then update the status and hit save, and update the status and hit save.
So here's the thing. Whenever you want to change a status, you have to hit the save button, right? Like there's no automatic way to do that. But at the same time, there are two different things here that you're trying to do. One is stop the end user from skipping a step, right? That's a validation.
The whole point is that we need these background fields updated, and that's why we were thinking at first, we wanted them to go through and hit every single one of those statuses, so these date fields would fill in the background. But the ideal situation wouldn't be to make the user have to click through each one of those, but it would be a workflow, I guess, to fill the other remaining fields if they haven't been through that stage.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but you know what? From a business perspective, when you're trying to report against those, think about it. If they skipped 2 steps, right, and you could populate like step number 1, 2, and the step that they're at right now with today's date, all of those are going to have today's date in there.
Right.
Okay? So the difference between those dates is 0. And so how is that useful in reporting, because there's no time frame there? What I'm trying to say is it's no different if you leave those dates blank and just populate the date for the current status. If you allow them to skip, it doesn't matter what the dates are in the 2 fields, dates that they skipped, because your time difference between the current step and the last step is going to be the same, even if you have dates in between, because they're today's dates.
Right. So the only other element to this that adds another level of complexity is these leads can actually go through, go up to an MQL open, MQL working, SQL open, and then be determined that oh, this isn't ready yet. They're not,
Yeah.
they're not at the point where they really want to get serious about this, so they put it back in the process to a nurture status. So those
Yeah.
date fields have dates there,
Yeah.
but from a previous effort. So they can come all the way back through the cycle again. But
Yeah.
my CEO's request is that he wants to be able to keep track of those dates to know that they were previously. And I mean, ideally, what he'd want is
So
to
you
be able
need
to
a
track
tracking
every
on
time.
those. You need to be able to track on those. So here's a really complex process, right? So you need to track those, and the best way to track in Salesforce things like that is when you put tracking on it is to create an analytic snapshot. Remember,
Yeah,
you want
so-
to capture a full history here, right? Like when they went forward, when they went backward, and then they came back forward, and then they went backward, and then they came back forward, right?
Right.
So
and we did explore the analytic snapshot,
Yeah.
and I can't remember why that became a problem for us. Because this is
Can This is Brandy. Hi. Can I ask a question here with this conversation?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So have you looked at using field history tracking?
You can't really use the history tracking on leads, and I can use it as in the history, but I can't really do much with it.
Yeah,
without-
there's not a whole
without
lot you
being
can
a
do from a
manual
reporting
process.
perspective.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear because you can report on the field history tracking. I know there are limitations of reporting on the field history tracking, but you would be able to see, you could say, I want to know when this field changed and what it changed to, and you could see that it changed forward, it changed back.
Yes, but you can't really pull it out and do a metrics report based on that history. Because, all the data is there. It's really frustrating, actually, because all the data is right there. I just can't put it into the type of report that we need.
So maybe you need to look at a different reporting solution than Salesforce reporting. Just
That's
wondering.
what I was thinking. You might need to use Conga for that.
Conga?
Yeah.
Okay. I will
So
definitely
it'll
check
be a
that out.
combination of analytic snapshot. See, remember what analytic snapshot does is it puts that data in a different table in the format that you need it, so you can write a report against that, right? Like that's a data holder. It's a place to hold your data based on the history that you want. And like in traditional terms, we call it a mini data warehouse. Analytic snapshot is like a mini data warehouse, and then you use your reporting tool to go against that data and bring it out the way you need to see it. So once you have that, you can use Conga to retrieve the data and display it in the way you need it. And the good thing about that is then you can bring it down into Excel, and you can either have it traditional in Excel or design your charts and graphs the way you need it, and still have that in the back end as Excel as the basis for it. So I think if you're running into problems with the Salesforce reporting itself, like the tool limitations, then I would say look at Conga for reporting. But I still believe that with what you want to do, you can do it with Analytic Snapshot, because you're basically storing all that historical data that you need to store, and now you have the flexibility to go back and forth between the stages without any problem.
Right, but doesn't that have a really big impact on your data storage limits?
It does have an impact on your data storage because you are storing additional data, but that's where, like data management a good retention policy comes into place. Remember, it's your analytic snapshot, right? So the leads that have been already converted, right? Like let's say you have leads that converted this year, and if you don't need to do last year's comparison, then take everything out, out of that analytic snapshot that is older than a year.
Got it.
So you clean up that table, and you do a backup before you clean it up, so you still have those Excel files to go back to if you need them.
Got it. Makes sense. Thank you.
And
You're welcome.
sorry, remind me of your name again. I was going to chat you a link for your validation rule that Steve Mo actually put together.
My name is Valerie.
Ellery. Gotcha. All right. Well, I'll just chat it to the whole group, but yeah, I posted this. I posted it out there. It should help you have a good way to kind of prevent what you're looking to do. So.
Great. Thank you so much, you guys.
The validation
Yeah.
tool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. So who? Let's see. We got Rob here. Rob's question is wants to generate a report that shows month by month the number of assigned leads and those that are unread for each of my selling reps. Anything else you want to add to that, Rob, or does that pretty much cover it?
No, that covers it. Thanks.
Cool. Deepa, Brandy, Marty, any of you guys want to
What was
take
the
that?
question
Or I can.
again?
So Rob's got some, he wants to run a report that shows month by month number of assigned leads by rep and those that are unread.
Isn't that like a matrix report?
Yeah, Rob, do you want to run that? Do you want to run that report just for the current month, or do you want to see it over, the current quarter and by month, or how do you want to run?
How about over current quarter and previous quarter, and then month by month within the quarters?
Like.
So you want to have each month grouped by quarter?
Correct.
Okay. And you're looking at leads, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I know Opportunity has 2 close dates, so you can, because you need 2 close dates if you want to do that kind of grouping, where you want to group, within the quarter and then month by month. So you may actually need a secondary date on your leads to get that double grouping just for that. Just thinking about that particular piece of the report. There's obviously a couple of other pieces involved here, but
I can relax the requirement to have months showing within quarters, but I absolutely need to have the report as a time series.
So what you're looking for, Rob, is kind of trend over time, right?
Thank you, Marty. That's it.
You know what? When I'm trying to think, when it was Toby, or why don't you give us a chance to do some research? There was actually a video posted on how to do that, or even there were instructions on how to do month over month from the previous analytics person at Salesforce. And in fact, I'm in the process of having conversations with another product manager who does reporting on Salesforce One. Let us get you instructions on that, because at the top of my head, this is not really 1, 2, 3 coming up as to what you do to build that in Salesforce. But give us a chance, and we'll come back and we'll post it on the MVP office hours.
That'd be great. Thanks, Deepa.
And can you, by any chance, go to the MVP office hours and put your requirements exactly there? So I have it in a return form that I can then forward it.
Happy to do that. Thank you.
Awesome.
You're welcome.
Yeah, there should definitely be a way to do that. So, all right. Let's see. Looks like our next question here is Kara. Let's see. 1,098 people who have the wrong organizational name. Let's see. So, Kara, you're just wondering how you can fix that on their user record?
Yes. Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I first want to figure out how the error happened to not have it happen again. And then secondly, we'd like to know how to fix it, which I think I know how to fix it, but my first thing is how to figure out how it happened.
So what was the question?
It's an organization name error. So we have roughly 1,100 people as contacts. who their organization name has been changed to it's another person's name. His name is Connor Semler. So roughly 1,100 contacts have the wrong organizational name. We're not 100%
So the account was changed. Account name, were they linked to a different account?
No, they're not linked. It's their contact name is correct and their organization name is wrong. And
Are you a nonprofit?
Yes.
Okay. So nonprofits have personal account concept.
I think, Carrie, to Deepa's question, when you're looking at organization name, just to confirm, you can click it to open up the organization, correct?
Yep. Mhm.
Okay. So that, okay.
It's linked, basically the contacts are linked to the wrong account. And
yeah, I guess that's a different way of saying it. Yeah, we are a nonprofit CRM, so organizations, how it works is it's supposed to reflect that person's exact name. So like Kara Oberg organization name should be Kara Oberg, and now it's linked to some other contact, which screws up all income donations.
Do you guys have tracking turned on to track the fields? Like in the back end, when you
history?
Yeah, the history. Like you can track up to 20 fields. Do you have that turned on?
That's a great question. I'm not sure.
If you have that turned on, then you will have the history of who changed it and when it was changed.
Well, that's also part of the error because we have like last modified by, and it says the person, but she was not in Salesforce. It says that it was last modified at like 2 in the morning on a Tuesday.
Do you have any third-party integrations?
We have third-party integration, but I don't understand why that would mess up organization names for like these 1,100 people.
Carrie, this is Marty. I just want to second Deepa's suggestion to turn on the field history tracking because you need to turn that on in order to see who's changing it and why. It sounds like you've got some scheduled jobs running in your system, and without being able to dive into seeing all of the things that are happening, there could be a number of reasons why it's happening, but for sure it seems like there's some kind of a scheduled process that's updating your data in Salesforce.
So we have a bunch of third parties, and usually when that third party updates it, it'll say last modified by like TickNet, for example. But it's saying like last modified by an actual user. Does that still?
Yeah. So here's what happens: if that third party modified it, and then somebody in your organization went in and made another change, then click on the save button, or if they even didn't change anything, then they clicked on the save button, it will update the last modified by. So whatever program changed it, now it's overwritten by someone physical in your office who touched that record. So the last modified date gets updated every time you click on the save button. And this is where I tell people that it's so important that if you're not making a change to a record, hit the cancel button. Don't hit the save button. Almost everybody clicks the save button. Even if they're viewing the record, they click on the save button.
Okay.
And that will not give you a correct last modified by information.
Is it possible that user in question is sort of the integration user, like there's some kind of incoming batch process that's running as that user? Because sometimes if you don't have a dedicated integration user, you could have it be running as some other user. That would be the other thing I would want to check into.
I don't 100% understand the question, but she did do a massive upload, but it wasn't done on time, and it wasn't done with all of these contacts.
Do we know who that person is in the background?
Whoever's talking loud in the background, could you mute yourself, please?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, could you say what your
I didn't understand the question 100%, but what I think you said is something in terms of like uploads. And the user that it says last modified by did do like a massive upload, but it wasn't the time or date it said last modified, and it didn't include even like half of the people that are now contacts are changed. So it's just so difficult to figure out like how it happened, so then I can then tell all my all people in my office, don't ever do this again, but I can't figure out what this is.
Sure.
But the recommendation of like turning on, we could have it on, but I'm not sure. I'll definitely double check
No,
that.
so I was just looking at my instance, and I looked at set history tracking, and even though I haven't enabled on my account, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I have to actually physically check the fields that I want tracked for Salesforce to capture that.
Okay.
So you literally have to go in and set it up and check the fields that you want tracked. And it's the same thing with contacts, although my account name in the contact is checked by default. So what I'm going to suggest you do is if you go to the page layout and look at the the contact history, like if history tracking is turned on,
Mm-hmm.
you will see a layout that gives you the history for who changed what.
Mm-hmm.
See if you can bring that onto the page layout at the very bottom as a related list, and take a look at see what shows up there.
Okay.
But once again, history tracking has to be turned on.
Yeah, I'm going
So
to
take a look at those two things.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. All right. Who else has a question? Somebody's got some fun stuff
Somebody's
going on
having
in the
too
background.
much fun.
Somebody's happy this Friday. Let me show anybody got any developer questions? We got Marty on the line. Might as well ask him if you have them.
Yeah, I have a question. My name is Richard Donovan.
Yeah, go Richard.
We've been kind of grappling. I'm at the University of New Hampshire, and one of the things that we're kind of grappling with is we have multiple groups within our organization. One is dealing with prospective students, and another one is the president's office. I'll give that as an example. And the president's office may look at a particular contact in one angle. Let's say that they're a business owner, but the admissions office may look at that person as a prospective MBA student. And so when you look at them, normally when you implement Salesforce, you can only associate a contact as associated with one particular account. But in this particular case, this particular contact is associated with, potentially multiple organizations. And we've been given advice, lots of advice on how to do this, how to model this. As simple as creating a new object that handles that, to using account contact roles and kind of modifying that. And I'm just kind of there's so much advice out there. I'm kind of looking for another opinion.
The best way
An
is a
opinion, that's
junction
why.
object.
Is what?
A junction object. This is where you create another object, because when you associate that contact to another organization, you have a particular role that person is satisfying to that other organization. Am I correct?
Yeah, a lot of times I'll maybe another example. Let's say you have a person that is working on they're part of a board of trustees, and they're also, they're also associated with a company that they work for. There's two different organizations. I'm using organizations versus accounts not to muddy things, because I don't want to limit my options. But I want to be able to potentially record. I want to record conversations, and track track communications differently for those people. And, there'll be certain users that are going to be able to see, the 360-degree view. They're going to be able to see everything about that, all the conversations that happen with that particular contact. But then there's other people that are only going to be able to see a portion of those because they shouldn't have the privileges to see certain conversations.
So we set up a similar thing for for a private equity firm. It was the same scenario, where an individual is working for a company, but they're on the board for another company, and they wanted to have those conversations separate, right?
Yep.
So you've got the standard account, you've got the contact, but then what we created was member, like we called it like member association or whatever you call it, right? Whatever your business term is for it. What this is a junction object that sits in the middle, so it says, one contact can belong to multiple accounts.
Yep.
Right? And one account can have multiple contacts in that case, so it's a many-to-many relationship. So what you do is you build that junction object, and then you allow activities and track history and, reports and all of that, so on that particular object. And then you give access to that object based on different roles and profiles, and so a certain group of people have access to a certain type of record. So when you create that junction object, in that, what you can do is you can also create what we call record types. And so one record type belongs to a particular group of people, another record type belongs to another particular group of people, and then you segregate security based on those record types. I see this done. We do this constantly for private equity firms.
Okay. So basically, all of your task records and event records and basically all your different communications that you're tracking are going to be hanging off of the junction object versus
absolutely.
The contact. Okay.
Absolutely, and you don't want to you don't want to create that as a master detail, because if you create it as a master detail, then all that conversation starts rolling up. So you want to create it's a lookup relationship for both the objects, so that the tasks and all the conversations that are happening stay in that particular record type, which only a group of people have access to and not anybody else.
Okay, all right, that makes a lot of sense. I guess the real question is if you want to use third-party apps, you have to probably evaluate them very carefully to see if you can change them to actually use the junction object.
Yeah, you would have to evaluate it very thoroughly. Yeah.
Okay.
Because remember, all the third-party apps are gonna default to the regular contact and account object. And I'm sorry, I'm stepping over whoever's trying to talk. I'm really sorry. Please go. Please talk.
Oh, no, you're fine, Deepa. This is Brandy. Hi. I was just going to ask, when you say third-party apps, I'm assuming you're talking about typical productivity integrations, like with email, tasks, and events, that kind of thing. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, you have that, but you also have there's third-party applications that build out functionality, for the admission space or, lots of different areas. So I'm not talking about just, building off of, your email and things like that, but I'm talking about, that enhance the functionality of Salesforce.
Right. So a bigger scope than just your typical productivity thing. That's definitely a big consideration. I think, once you start going down that path, it does get complicated. So you want to definitely test those kind of scenarios out. Yeah.
Does anyone know if there's been many? I'm relatively new. I've only been with Salesforce for 6 months. Has there been a lot of suggestions about trying to make a junction object part of the, between contact and account, standard piece of the Salesforce functionality?
I know there's a lot of talk about the whole concept of a person record and how all of the complicatedness that comes up with the kind of scenarios exactly that you're describing. And it does get very challenging. And I know, we've, as MVPs and other Salesforce folks have sat in on roadmap sessions where product managers are talking about the concept of a person record as opposed to having it be all subdivided into leads, accounts, or not accounts, sorry, but leads, contacts, different kinds of things. So I know they're thinking about that a lot, specifically the join there. That's, I think, there's contact roles, doesn't that accomplish something similar except for the fact that you're limited to being able to customize that? You can't customize contact roles. Am I correct?
You can't customize contact roles.
Right.
It's extremely hard to do any kind of reporting.
So that's where you get into needing to roll your own. If they would open up contact roles, the existing contact roles, to make it a fully fledged object with full-on Force.com functionality, then you would be able to do more with the standard object as opposed to having to create a new custom object, correct?
Yeah, and that was one of the things. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's one of the first things I started looking at was contact roles.
Yeah.
Yeah. I missed your name when you announced yourself.
My name is Richard Donovan.
No, the lady.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's Brandy. Deepa, it's Brandy.
Okay, I was wondering.
Hi.
I feel like I'm steamrolling you over.
You're
Deepa,
fine. No,
Brandy, your fellow MVP.
We actually know each other. No, it's fine. We're just all very passionate problem solvers, so it's okay.
I'm so sorry, Brandy.
No, don't worry. It's totally fine. But Richard, I think one of the things you're bumping into looking at contact roles, and this is maybe a little bit of a tangent. You were kind of asking about Salesforce and their product strategy and roadmap, so that's where I'm kind of going down this road. I'm sure Deepa probably has something more relevant to share to your actual needs today, but looking from a roadmap perspective, contact roles is one of those pieces of Salesforce that we as MVPs affectionately like to refer to as the core. And there are many pieces of that have been developed by Salesforce a long time ago, and they haven't really been enhanced, or they've kind of been left behind. So, then that's not to say anything negative that Salesforce is bad or anything like that. They just, they're constantly innovating, and so sometimes some of those kinds of things get left behind because people are able to get by with kind of creating their own thing. But that's definitely something that we've been hearing as MVPs from Salesforce product managers, that it's their goal to revisit a lot of that stuff that's been left behind and bring it up to speed with the rest of the platform, so that you don't have those limitations and you're less likely to need to go and sort of roll your own, do something, create some custom piece of functionality for something that exists already standard in Salesforce, but it's not quite there, so hopefully that helps make sense. And now, Deepa, I'm sure you have probably, more information about a better solution that he can solve this problem today. So you go ahead.
Well, as I said, we've done this for so many private equity firms, and since there is the limitation with the contact roles, the best way is to create a junction object, because it's going to give him, everything that he's asking for, right? Like the ability to track all the conversations and history and segregate it by security, right? It's like certain groups can only see certain people, and the others can only see other people and their conversations. So the only way to do that is with a junction object.
So what limitations, Deepa, have you run across with that kind of situation where, where you're wanting to integrate with another app of some kind?
The thing is, you can't, when you integrate with another app, remember, every application allows you to do customization on top of what they've done, right? But whatever they do, they stay with the core objects that Salesforce stays with, which is lead, contacts, accounts, opportunities, campaigns, and cases, right? Those are the basic, standard objects. Every third-party application is going to develop on that standard object. So if you're going to develop a business process with the custom object that you're creating, you do have to make sure that if you bring on a third-party application, then it is going to function basic off of the main core standard objects, and then you'd have to figure out a workaround business process flow that you can implement where you then link that third-party application with your custom object with lookup fields, but that doesn't mean that it's going to give you the results that you're looking for, because if they have a core functionality that's based on the values that are coming from the standard objects, you can't change that.
Yeah.
You can't change that. So you really have to think about what is it that you want to capture in the custom, like in the custom object you're creating, and how is that going to impact your future, business that you're going to be looking at. It's great to see something, but is that the true business process? And that's something you have to evaluate as well.
Cool. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your insight on that. We have a question here from Amanda Stover. What is the best platform/app to optimize marketing automation and CRM? Well, I think the default answer, I'm not saying default answer. Obviously, with ExactTarget, that is a part of the Salesforce family now. That's an option, but I actually haven't had any experience with full marketing automation suites. I don't know, Deepa, Brandy, or Marty, if you guys have any.
Why don't we give
there.
Brandy a chance and then I'll step in.
Sure. We just actually evaluated and implemented marketing automation at our company. There are a lot of solutions. It's a very competitive space, and so there's a lot to look at. I think from the Salesforce perspective, I think Pardot is actually more the marketing automation, where you're doing those operational kinds of, pushing people down the funnel, accelerating the lead to customer process. ExactTarget is more of a, and this is my understanding from talking to some reps at Dreamforce, which one do I pick, right? Why aren't they all together in one package now? Is that ExactTarget is more for kind of a continue. It's more email communicating to your customers or trying to generate leads, whereas Pardot is more that lead nurturing, where you've got them as a lead and now you need to, or they're an existing customer, right? And you need to continually communicate to them to either accelerate their initial purchase or their renewal purchase. So that's kind of the difference between those two. That said, we had actually decided to go with Marketo, and that was my boss's decision. I think I personally liked Pardot better, honestly, but especially because it has so much. I know, especially because it has so. It's so. If you understand the Salesforce platform and the way the sort of naming conventions around custom fields, custom objects, all of that, and the data structure of Salesforce, then Pardot, easy sauce to pick up, right? It just really dovetailed in so nicely. Marketo, I think we chose it. My boss chose it. He did some very in-depth analysis, very thorough, but he chose it because I think it handled duplicates better. I think Pardot is kind of lacking in that at this point. So that's my understanding. So that's what I know about marketing automation. I'm really having, it's a lot to learn and it's a lot to manage. It gives you a lot of power to reach a lot of customers very frequently, but it's also not going to run itself. You've got to actually have somebody's got to own it, invest time and thought into it. So I'm sure you probably already recognize that, but and it's also a beast for content. So get ready to write a crap load of stuff. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and then
awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah, and the other packages that are out there are also, depending on how big you are or how small you are you like a big firm or are you with a smaller firm?
It's a smaller firm.
Okay, so some of the packages that work with the smaller firms are like you've got Acton. Once again, duplicates will end up being a problem, but what you can end up doing is looking at products like RingLead or CRM Fusion that can allow you to do deduplication within Salesforce. But Acton is a good product. Higher end is Eloqua, and there's another product that's coming on the market or has been on the market and I'm just getting exposed to, is called MakesBridge. And they have different packages. They allow both emailing, but they also allow a little bit of behavioral analysis based on where someone's going on your website. So MakesBridge is another product that does that. I'm pretty soon I'm going to be trying to do a trial with them for my own use. But basically, as Brandy said, it's going to be a huge effort. You need to put a lot of thought into it. And you really have to be conscious about the data, and especially when, at what point do you bring what information into Salesforce? Try not to bring, one of the biggest things that I see with all the marketing automation systems is when you start bringing in, records like every time you sent an email to, let's say, 500 leads, try not to bring that into the system as a task with a subject line that says email sent. Like, is this going to add any business value to your salespeople to see 500 tasks, or let's say if you sent out like a particular person like 20 emails, does that add value to see 20 tasks in the system saying email sent, email sent, email sent? Instead, what I would see is a better approach to that is try and figure out a way if you can create an account in that marketing automation system and bring a field into Salesforce as a counter that says here's how many emails they got, so that it's visible to the salesperson that you made this effort in the marketing automation system, but you're not clogging up Salesforce. So there's a lot of different things that you have to keep in mind when you start doing the marketing automation and you start integrating it with Salesforce. But for the smaller companies, look at Acton, look at MakesBridge, and obviously, ExactTarget was really aligned with the small business market, and it is now part of Salesforce. So you might want to look at both Pardot and ExactTarget there as well.
Yeah, I'm a big Pardot looks really awesome. Like I said, and I'm personally lobbying Marketo on their ideas site because you kind of need to know HTML to make your email templates do what you want over there. I was incredibly surprised that they don't have WYSIWYG, editor for creating your email templates. It's pretty lacking, and I'm like, what? Because can I code HTML? Yes. Do I want to? No. I don't have that kind of time, right?
That's where you go hire an HTML.
If you're a small company, you don't necessarily have a designer you can go to. And then if you want to fix it, you don't want to be stuck with that. You know what I mean? You want to be able to. Oh, another thing. Well, that's not really marketing automation. I was going to say MailChimp is coming out with a new campaigns integration, but that's kind of a different.
That's not
true marketing automation. No, so never mind.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate the insight on that. I learned something myself, too, so it's great. Awesome. Well, we have a question here from, and I apologize if I butcher your name. I'm going to say Toya Gatewood. Has a question on moving from Outlook to Google Apps, and I applaud you moving from Outlook to Google Apps. Best email calendar management out there. Just a personal preference. And you're asking are there any pitfalls that you should be looking for? You're not using the side panel. Anything else coming in? I'll say right off the bat that I don't really think so from a pitfall standpoint. I would recommend looking at tools out there that you're not going to have. With Gmail, you're not going to have the Salesforce tool to add emails, but there are third-party tools out there, such as Sirius Insight, Imperial Cloud Factor, that will allow you to add emails in. So definitely look at that. I don't really see necessarily any pitfalls or any gotchas. It is nice because you do get some additional buttons that you can add into Salesforce, like send with Gmail, that will pop you into your Gmail client, and use email to Salesforce to automatically attach an email. So things like that, and obviously Google Docs as well. So I don't know if anybody else has any other things they want to throw in there.
I switched 100% to Google, and it's like I'm hosting everything on the Google Apps with the business account, and it's fantastic. It's like I can access it. The over-the-air sync is fantastic. Like all my contacts, they sync on to my iPhone and my iPad, and knock on wood, never any issues with that. Well, last thing I need is jinxing myself. But no, you will not be sorry. The only thing I will say is adapting the Google, the way you look at emails and the way you compose emails, it takes a little bit to transition. And also setting up your signature. Because it's an HTML template, if you want pictures and all of that, what you have to do is you have to host your images somewhere else and then bring that into your email signature, and then it works. And now I'm like off the bat, I'm forgetting where I host mine, but I host my images on a free website, and then I just have a link to it, and every time somebody gets an email, my images do show up. I'll post a link as soon as I find my shortcut to it where I host the images. But that's the only tricky part is setting up the email signature. But once you figure that out, it's absolutely easy.
How many users are you going to be moving from Outlook to Gmail? Can I ask?
I'm sorry, my voice is really hoarse because I have a really bad cold.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thanks. We're only going to be moving about 15 users. We're a very small organization.
Oh, okay. So then that I was going to call out the only other gotcha I could really think of is that if you have a large, change management effort where you're, hundreds of users or something, especially people that are entrenched in Outlook and have been for years, sometimes that change of the user interface can really jar people. I think most of us on the call agree that the user interface of Gmail is way better than Outlook, and we hate Outlook now. So, but not everybody feels that way, right? And not everybody that, especially if Outlook is their thing and they live there, especially if they're in sales and like their email and their calendars is life.
Yeah,
like you really. Then you really need to just be ready for some hand-holding with them. And, I hate to say, let them have both in the meantime, and I don't know if that's even a good recommendation. I mean, it's considered you could, but because you could still be on Gmail and they could still use Outlook, right? They could still use an Outlook client even though you guys are running your email through Google Apps. But, I think that's just a consideration, right? You need to acknowledge people's uncomfortability and fear of change and just really do everything you can to help them, get them tutorials. I know when I was working at Aperia, we had a guy that was just in a whole practice around change management for Google Apps and companies migrating to Google Apps. And there was this guy that was just fantastically amazing. He works at Google now, and he was like, he'd stand up and tell people how to use Google and be awesome and why it's so much better than Outlook. And he was like, he had gray hair, and so most of the people that are going to be fighting that are going to be the older people, I find. So, to have somebody like that you can maybe find somebody internally as a champion that can be like, yeah, it's really good. So, if you can kind of just from that sort of soft skills, change management, non-technical side of things, just get somebody that's really, can be a champion and be the sort of go-to, yeah, it's all good, don't worry, here's how you need to do that. Remember how you did that? Here's how you do it in Google Apps.
Great.
So,
thanks very much.
Yeah. That's probably going to be the hardest piece.
Yeah, I think so, but we're working on it. So we have a whole month to get them up before we transition. So I'm working on them, slowly but surely.
That was the thing that guy that I was just telling you about, that's kind of one of the things he did is he went through and said, okay, here's this really important thing that you do in Outlook, right? Here's how you, put an email in a folder, right? Well, here's how it's different in Gmail. In Gmail, it's not a folder, well, I think it is folders now, but whatever. In Gmail, you do it this way. It's labels, yeah. So in Gmail, you make a label, and here's where it is, and here's how you do it. So if you can maybe come up with those, if you haven't already, those commonly done tasks in Outlook, and then say, here's how it's different in Gmail, and train to that, that'll probably really help the people that are like resisting and going and freaking out.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, we're about at 3 minutes, and the only thing I wanted to throw in is, for most of us, we are actually, I believe, about a week out from Spring 14. So definitely, pretty awesome. Exciting features coming along. So I encourage you to check Trust just to verify what your release window will be for your instance. That way you can notify users that you spent an entire weekend upgrading the instance, and
now they treat you really nice and give you and go easy on you all week because it was so hard.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time on development. So
okay, so I found the site that I was talking about where I host images. It's called postimage.org.
Postimage.org.
That's a pretty good site name there.
Thanks very much, Deepa.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Well, unless anybody else has any other questions, we'll go ahead and call it a day. Appreciate everyone joining today. If you have any other questions, I will leave you with this. Try to definitely post them out on the actual answers community. Some people have been posting questions and stuff on the actual group, which is okay from time to time after the call and stuff like that. But you're better off posting that there where people can mark best answer, and you're going to get a lot more response out there. So just a heads up there, and let us know again if you can if we can improve in any way. We'd love to have your feedback. So again, thanks for joining us today, and everyone have an excellent weekend.
You too.
Thank you very much. You too.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Please stand by.